From pain to love, Wang and Shen Yue'S moment that shook the internet. The cameras were supposed to stop rolling hours ago. But no one dared to move. The air inside the studio was heavy, so charged with tension that even the production lights seemed to flicker under its weight. Wang stood frozen in the middle of the set, his eyes burning, his chest rising and falling as if every breath carried the weight of the last few months. And across from him, Shin Yu stood still, clutching something in her trembling hands. It wasn't a prop. It wasn't scripted. It was real. The silence before the storm. The crew whispered behind the cameras, confused but unable to look away. This wasn't acting anymore. This was something raw. Something unplanned. And the millions who would later see this moment online had no idea that what they were about to witness would shake them to their core. Because for Dylan and Shin Yu, the thin line between pain and love was about to snap. The memory that haunted. It had only been weeks since the hospital scare. Fans still remembered the ambulance lights, the rushed statements, the endless speculation about whether Shin Yu would recover, and whether Dylan, the man who had never left her side, would finally break under the pressure. But what the world didn't know was that while Shin Yu's body was healing, Dylan's heart was breaking. Night after night, he replayed the same scene. Her collapsing. Her struggling for air. Her hand slipping out of his in the elevator when doctors pulled her away. And that one phrase he whispered into the chaos, one that no microphone caught but one that Shin Yu had never forgotten. Please don't leave me, not like this. The confession nobody expected. The cameras zoomed closer now. Shin Yu finally raised her head, her eyes glistening, her voice cracking as if the words had been waiting to break free for months. You think I didn't hear you that night, Dylan? The room stopped breathing. Dylan's lips parted, but no sound came out. Shin Yu took a shaky step forward. You begged me not to leave you. And I didn't. I fought because of you. I fought because even when everything was fading, your voice was the only thing that kept me here. A gasp rippled through the crew. The director looked ready to yell cut, but no one dared to interfere. Because this was no longer fiction. This was the truth. Dylan breaks. Dylan's knees nearly buckled. He turned away for a moment, pressing his palms into his face, fighting emotions that no actor could possibly fake. When he finally looked back, his eyes were red. His voice cracked, trembling, almost breaking with each word. You don't know how many nights I hated myself. For not protecting you. For not telling you sooner, everything I felt. I thought I was going to lose you forever, Shin Yu. And the thought of living in a world without you. He stopped. His throat closed. His chest shook. And then, with one step, he closed the distance between them. The touch. It wasn't a dramatic kiss. It wasn't a staged embrace. It was something far more fragile. His hand reaching for hers. Their fingers brushing, hesitating, before finally intertwining like they had always belonged there. The smallest gesture. But the loudest statement. And in that quiet moment, a tidal wave of emotions crashed through the studio. The crew had tears in their eyes. The fans who would later replay this moment millions of times online would swear they felt their own hearts break and heal at once. Because it wasn't about the pain anymore. It was about what grew from it. Love. A moment that shook the internet. When the clip leaked hours later, social media exploded. Hashtags trended in seconds. From pain to love. Dylan's voice breaks. Shin Yu's confession. Clips of her trembling voice, of his tear-streaked face, of their hands finally holding, spread like wildfire. Viewers called it the most real moment they had ever seen on screen. Fans who once doubted them now confessed they had never believed in love more. And critics who had dismissed their connection as publicity had no words left. Because you can fake smiles. You can fake chemistry. But you cannot fake the kind of raw, explosive vulnerability that Dylan and Shin Yu had just laid bare for the world. Cliffhanger. But the moment wasn't over. Because just as Dylan whispered something into Shin Yu's ear, words no microphone could catch, words fans would spend weeks trying to decipher, a familiar face appeared at the edge of the set. Bai Lu. Her eyes locked on the intertwined hands. Her lips parted. And the storm that had just begun to calm was about to erupt again. The sound of her heels echoed first. Sharp. Cold. Bai Lu stepped onto the set like a storm no one had prepared for. She wasn't supposed to be there. Not tonight. Not in this moment. But suddenly she was, and all eyes turned to her. The interruption. Her gaze locked on Dylan's trembling hand, still laced with Shin Yue's. Her face didn't scream anger. It didn't scream jealousy. It screamed something worse. Hurt. Disbelief. And the kind of raw betrayal that even a seasoned actress couldn't hide. The silence, once filled with unspoken confessions, now cracked with tension sharp enough to cut through steel. Dylan, Bai Lu's voice rang out, trembling, but steady enough to demand an answer. What is this? Dylan freezes. For the first time, Dylan didn't know what to say. His lips moved, but no sound came. The man who had just bared his soul to Shin Yu in front of the world, who had let tears fall and his voice break, now stood wordless in the face of another truth. Because Bai Lu wasn't just anyone. She was his partner on screen. His confidant in quiet moments. And the woman whose name had been tied to his in more rumors than he could count. Shin Yu's reaction. Shin Yu's fingers trembled inside Dylan's hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't tighten her grip either. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her mind spinning with the weight of what this interruption meant. Because she knew. She knew this wasn't just about her and Dylan anymore. It was about what the world had seen. What fans were already talking about. And what Bai Lu had just walked in on. The unspoken question. Bai Lu's eyes softened for just a moment, as if she wasn't just confronting Dylan, but pleading with him. Tell me I didn't imagine it, she whispered. Tell me I didn't believe in something that was never real. The words hung heavy in the air. Shin Yu closed her eyes, as though each syllable pierced her like a blade. And Dylan felt the room collapsing around him. Dylan speaks. Finally, he found his voice. But when he spoke, it wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't careful. It was raw. Bai Lu. I never meant to hurt you. But this, he glanced down at Shin Yu, his voice cracking again, this isn't something I can control anymore. I tried. I really tried. But the truth is, I almost lost her. And when you almost lose someone like that, you realize there's no pretending left. No walls. No masks. His words hung in the air like a confession carved into stone. The world watches. By then, phones were out. Crew members who had been silent witnesses now captured every second, knowing this would explode online the moment it leaked. 3 lives. 3 hearts. Colliding in one moment of unbearable truth. Shin Yu's tears fell freely now. Bai Lu's chest heaved, her hands trembling as she fought to hold herself together. And Dylan. Dylan looked torn in two. A decision. Then say it, Bai Lu finally whispered, her voice breaking. Say what she means to you. Right here. Right now. Don't hide behind almost losing her. Don't hide behind fear. Tell the truth, Dylan. The demand was simple. But the cost of answering it. Unimaginable. The room felt like a courtroom. Every soul inside holding its breath, waiting for the verdict. Dylan chooses. Slowly, Dylan turned. His eyes locked on Shin Yue's. And in that fragile stare, the answer came before his lips even moved. She's everything. The words shattered the silence. Bai Lu's breath caught. Shin Yue's tears overflowed. And the crew, the fans who would replay this moment endlessly, knew this wasn't acting anymore. It was the rawest truth Dylan Wang had ever spoken. Cliffhanger. But as the weight of those words settled, as Bai Lu's expression broke into something between devastation and resignation, the sound of another door opening echoed across the set. And in walked Jong Lingha. His eyes flicked between Bai Lu's tears, Dylan's trembling voice, and Shin Yue's shaking hands. The storm was far from over. The door clicked shut behind him. It was a soft sound, but in that tense silence, it may as well have been a thunderclap. Jong Lingha didn't rush forward. He didn't demand explanations. He simply stood there, framed by the doorway, his tall figure cutting into the already fragile moment like the final twist of a blade. His eyes scanned the scene in front of him, Bai Lu's tear-streaked face, Dylan's trembling hand locked around Shin Yue's, and the suffocating tension that filled the room. It was a scene no script could have written, no director could have planned. It was real. Too real. The stare that said everything. Jong Lingha's gaze lingered on Bai Lu first. There was no anger in his eyes, not yet, but a deep hurt, the kind that came not from betrayal, but from realizing the person you loved had been wounded in ways you couldn't stop. Then his eyes shifted to Dylan. For a second, the two men said nothing. But the silence between them roared louder than any argument. Everyone watching felt it, two different worlds colliding, both refusing to back down. Bai Lu breaks. Linghe, Bai Lu's voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. She took a step toward him, her hands shaking. I didn't plan for this. I just walked in and, her voice faltered, her eyes darting toward Dylan and Shin Yu before snapping back to Linghe. And now I don't even know what's real anymore. Her words trembled with vulnerability, but also with accusation. Because while she was speaking to Linghe, her eyes begged Dylan for answers he had already given. Answers she wasn't ready to hear. Dylan speaks again. For once, Dylan didn't avoid it. He straightened, his voice low but steady. It's real, Bai Lu. All of it. I can't lie anymore. Not to her. Not to you. Not to anyone. He squeezed Shen Yue's hand gently, as though anchoring himself to her. She almost slipped away from me once. I thought I'd lost her forever. That moment changed me. I can't pretend she's not everything I've been searching for. The words, though directed at Bai Lu, reverberated through the entire room. Every syllable carried the weight of finality, but also risk. Because with every truth Dylan confessed, the cracks between him, Bai Lu, and Jong Lingha widened. Shin Yu's silence. Through it all, Shin Yu hadn't spoken. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled and refilled with tears. But she hadn't let go of Dylan's hand. Not once. Inside, though, her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to scream, to stop this before it spiraled further. But the weight of everything, Dylan's words, Bai Lu's heartbreak, Linghe's silence, pinned her down. She felt like she was standing on a stage where every choice she made would cost someone everything. Jong Lingha steps forward. Finally, Jong Lingha moved. The room held its breath as he walked past Bai Lu, his steps slow but deliberate, until he stood directly in front of Dylan. For a moment, they were almost eye to eye, two men tied by circumstance, by love, by an invisible line neither could sever. You think love is just about saying who you can't live without? Linghe's voice was calm, too calm. You think speaking those words in front of cameras makes them true? Real love is sacrifice. Real love is staying when everything around you says run. His words cut through the air like knives. And though they weren't spoken with anger, they landed with the weight of judgment. Dylan fires back. Dylan didn't flinch. No. Real love is honesty. Real love is finally admitting the truth, even if it breaks the world in half. And I won't hide anymore. Not from her. Not from anyone. His chest heaved as his voice cracked, not with weakness, but with conviction. And for the first time, Shin Yu turned to look at him fully, her eyes wide, her lips trembling, as though she was hearing the unshakable truth she had longed for but feared to believe. Bai Lu collapses into tears. Bai Lu shook her head, tears streaming freely now. You don't get it, Dylan. You don't know what you've done. Not just to me, but to all of us. Do you think this ends with a confession? Do you think the world will just let you walk away with her? Look around you. Every eye is watching. Every camera is rolling. And tomorrow, every headline will tear us apart. Her words weren't just about herself. They were about the storm she knew was coming, a storm that none of them could outrun. The escalation. Suddenly, voices outside the door grew louder. Reporters. Fans. The chaos that had been building outside finally spilled over, the sound of footsteps and shouting echoing into the room. Everyone turned, realizing the sanctuary of privacy had shattered. The world had already found them. And whatever truth had been spoken in this room was no longer theirs to protect. Shin Yu finally speaks. Her voice, though quiet, cut through the noise. Stop. The single word froze everyone, Dylan, Bai Lu, Linghe, even the crew that had been recording in stunned silence. She rose slowly, slipping her hand free from Dylan's, though not rejecting him, just needing space. Her eyes glistened with tears, but her voice carried a strength no one expected. You're all fighting over me like I'm a choice to be made. Like I'm a prize. But I'm not. I'm a person. And I can't breathe in this anymore. The echo of her earlier breakdown, the one where she nearly lost her breath, hung painfully in the room. Dylan's chest tightened at the memory. Bai Lu's tears fell harder. And Jong Lingha lowered his gaze, realizing his words had struck deeper than he intended. A cliffhanger decision. Shin Yu took a shaky step forward, her eyes sweeping across all three of them. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know what the headlines will say. But I know this, I can't let the world decide for me. Not anymore. Not again. She turned, her eyes landing on Dylan, lingering just long enough to send a spark of hope. Then she glanced at Bai Lu, her expression soft, full of sorrow but not resentment. Finally, her gaze fell on Linghe, heavy with gratitude but also an unspoken goodbye. I need to choose for myself, she whispered. And with that, she walked toward the door. The room left behind. The sound of the door opening echoed again, but this time, it was Shen Yu leaving. Her figure disappeared into the chaos of reporters waiting outside, leaving Dylan, Bai Lu, and Linghe behind in a storm of their own making. Dylan's fists clenched at his sides, torn between chasing her and respecting her space. Bai Lu collapsed into Linghe's arms, her sobs muffled against his chest. And Linghe, torn himself, whispered words no one else could hear. The cameras kept rolling. The story wasn't over. It had only just begun. To be continued. Because the world outside was waiting. The headlines would twist everything. And Shin Yu's next move? It would decide not just her future, but all of theirs.